People who have been Santa at the mall. What's the creepiest thing a kid has asked for Christmas? I have been Santa for several seasons. I had a special needs young woman approximate age of 40. Emotional of 12 perhaps asked me to make her boyfriend quit hitting her. I told a lady who was helping me to get the deputy sheriff at the event to come see me. I whispered to him what she had said. He came back 10 minutes later and asked if I would speak to her in a private area. There the deputy and Santa got a clearer but very disturbing picture of how she had been repeatedly abused. In May the deputy let me know the offender had been sentenced to 8 years and the girl had been relocated to new care facility. Edit. Thank you for the gold and the praise. The real gold in life comes from doing for those that can do nothing for you. That's Santa magic right there. My friend's dad used to be a Santa. He couldn't stop crying after a shift one time. When we finally got him to say what was wrong, he said a little girl told him she didn't want any item for Christmas. She wanted a new daddy who won't touch her. Her dad was there with her. Friend's dad had to enact the emergency protocols. Girl didn't want to talk to police about it unless Santa was with her. He heard some speep. That was a very brave little girl and your friend's dad did good that day. Just sad rather than creepy. Kid came in and wanted nothing except from a Matchbox car. He told me how every week he heard his mom sneak into his bedroom and take the pocket money that she had given him to buy cigarettes. I felt so terrible for him that I gave him 3 to 4 different presents, rather than just one. My dad did the same thing. I would get an allowance, put it in this plastic bank which also kept all my loose change. He'd come in after I got my allowance from my mom early morning when he headed off to work and just shake the speep out of that bank. When I got to 3rd grade I just started leaving the money on my dresser so I could get some sleep. Damn. That's rough. I remember putting my glass Snoopy change bank back together with band-aids. My heart. Not a Santa. My little brother, when he was around 5 or 6 years old, asked Santa for a vacuum cleaner and a rope. Santa gave my mom a really weird look. But my brother loved to vacuum the living room. He would get mad if anybody else did it, and say, I was gonna do it. The rope was so he could tie a wagon to the back of his bike and use it as a trailer. IRC. But Santa didn't know though my brother was some kind of slave child, possibly seeking to hang himself. We took our 12-year-old nephew who has mild autism to meet Santa. He told him that all he wanted was a new bread machine. Santa thought he misheard him and made him repeat it. No. He absolutely wanted a new bread machine. He had watched many YouTube videos and the newer ones had functions that the one he got for his 10th birthday didn't have. A friend's son, also on the spectrum, gets a shiny new vacuum cleaner every birthday. He wants nothing else. When they visit, he wants to know where your vacuum is and if he can use it. I invite them to parties early. I worked with a preschooler who was on the autism spectrum and vacuum cleaners were very much his special interest. He had a little photo album full of catalog cutouts of vacuum cleaners and he'd tell us which ones were his favorite and why. He was so excited when Halloween came around, because he told us all he was going to be a vacuum cleaner. Unfortunately, I think his mom was embarrassed by his fixation and instead made him a costume to look like an ear of corn. It was a very clever handmade costume, but you could tell he was disappointed that he wasn't a vacuum cleaner. Hell, we were disappointed for him too. Had a kid ask Santa, what happens to all the dead kids' toys? They'll end up in your stocking if you don't shut up. And the toys too. Cheers lads. Username checks out. No post on Sundays. My boyfriend is a Santa for private events. And has been doing it for over 20 years. So he has a bunch of stories. Edit. I remembered one. He was doing a private adults-only party. So all of the ladies were being a bit flirty. But nothing crazy. Santa Baby started playing and the ladies dragged him onto the dance floor. He shimmies a bit and goes to sit back down when a woman grabs him and starts grinding on him. He tries to get away from her in character, what will Mama Claus think? Etc. But she keeps on grinding and starts to moan. Finally, the hostess notices and gets her away from him. But she kept trying to get to him the rest of the night. The saddest story was definitely when a little kid 4 or 5 crawled into his lap and, with a big, sweet smile, asked Santa, "Can you make my mommy love me?" My BF has to hug the kid so he wouldn't see him tearing up and told him that that was a request for a higher power and that he and Mama Claus would pray about it. Kid seemed happy with that response. That last story broke my heart. I believe every child should get the chance to experience unconditional love from their parents. It's so unfortunate to know that some kids don't get this, which makes it even more difficult for them to accept another person's love later in the future. I wasn't a mall Santa, but one of the elves who took the had 2 Santas. One was narcoleptic and we had to keep waking him up. And the other would bring his own homemade bags of coal to give to the kids who would cry, and we'd have to try to seize all the bags before he started his shift. That was a fun job. The falling asleep Santas are awful. Ours was so old he'd fall asleep while holding babies. We had to use spotters in case Santa lost his grip. My dad plays Santa for the community every year. A little girl once asked for a nicer daddy. This is sad. The thing with kids is that dad could be an abusive monster. Or he might just not let her eat freezies for dinner. You never know. My youngest sister once asked a mall Santa to get rid of me forever. I had walked through the Disney store with her earlier but didn't let her buy anything because neither of us had money and our mother just brought us along while she bought shirts. When I was a kid, my brother accidentally erased my Pokemon save on my Game Boy. I told him I was disowning him as a brother. I regretted saying that for years because my brother took it pretty hard. Getting disowned is the least of consequences he should have expected for such a heinous act. LOL. That's what I felt like at the time. It was Pokemon Crystal, I think. It was back when you really had to work hard trading with other kids to complete your decks. TLDR. One of my most prized possessions is a homemade snow globe that was given to me by a random little girl. It has pride of place on my desk. The story? Every year, I get dressed up as Santa or the Slovak equivalent. Mingle and tour around my town in a horse-drawn carriage, stopping at scheduled places to distribute Christmas biscuits to the town's kids. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. Last year, I had just chased off a boy who was trying to set my beard alight, when a little girl of 4 or 5 shyly handed me a little homemade snow globe. She was obviously starstruck to be meeting Meagle, and her older sister was gently pushing her towards me. I thought that she just wanted my opinion. So I looked at it and said that it was very pretty in my broken Slovak. When I turned to give it back, she had run away into the crowd. If anybody is interested, I'll upload a photo of it. Edit. Ho ho, hold your horses everyone. Sorry. I had to go the office to take the picture and work happened. Here you go. Please do. This is beyond sweet. Not me. Not creepy. But a bit haunting. My dad used to be the Macy's Santa in New York. He had a kid come in who wanted his brother's cancer to go away. Brother came to the store too. A couple weeks later. Of course Santa has no control over these things. But being the Macy's Santa has some power. He was able to get the store to let them come in at a special time and pick out pretty much whatever they wanted. It was magical. And he still has the pictures. He would regularly write to them as Santa until after the brother died and went to visit him as Santa before he died. Tried to stay in touch with the family, but I think it was just too sad and the magic was gone. This was touching. Good on your dad. Not a Santa. But I remember being in hospitals a lot as a kid with serious stomach issues. I remember asking a mall Santa if I could get better and not die once when I was about 8 or 9 years old. When the mall Santa looked at me sadly and said he couldn't do that. Almost in tears. I asked if my old dog that died as a puppy could be brought back as a zombie so we could both be dead together, and if I could come back as a zombie too so I could stay with my parents so they wouldn't be sad. Looking back, that was really creepy and I think I broke the poor guy's heart. But wait. You asked that? Right? So congrats on living. I guess? Did you not read his post? He asked if he could come back as a zombie. Clearly he is a zombie. So this is how it started. Patient 0. My dad plays a mall Santa and I used to be the photographer. Watching the older women flirt with my dad was highly uncomfortable then creepy. I've been the Easter bunny and the amount of getting hit on is weird. And the amount of women that just put their boobs in your face when they are messing with their kid. It's all beeping weird. Imagine being one of their husbands and walking in on your wife beeping the Easter bunny. That's how he gets their eggs. I was Santa for corporate holiday parties one year. I was in my 30s but used a spray for my beard. Looked lifelike. Kids dug it. So did one mom/aunt who threw a kid off my lap hers. I hope and whispered that she wanted Santa to beep her from behind while pulling her hair. She didn't seem to be drunk. I was very uncomfortable. Then the meeting planner told me she does that every year. I wonder what childhood Christmas experiences she had while growing up. Reminds me of that one video from Animation Domination where it's 50 Shades of Grey. But with Santa. I'll stuff your stocking. If he did stuff her stocking, he should have used condom and said that Santa's presents always come with wrapping. My uncle was a mall Santa for a while. He said that the worst thing he was asked for by a child was, "Can you get daddy to come home?" He also had quite a few kids tug on his beard, which was a real beard, to verify that he was actually Santa. Looks like that scene in Elf did its damage at. You don't smell like Santa. You smell like beef and cheese. I wasn't a Santa but my roommate was. This was at a spot in East Brooklyn. A super impoverished area riddled with a lot of drugs and violence. He said it was disturbing how many kids had literally nothing. So they asked for the most basic things. Or they just asked to get out of speepty situations. He said stuff like this was common. I wish my mom would stop hitting me. I wish my brother was still alive. He got shot. I wish we had enough money for a microwave. I wish my daddy would stop doing heroin. Stuff like that was everywhere. My wife and I adopt a kid every year to buy them Christmas presents through a local charity. Their lists always depress us as it'll include basic necessities like a jacket or gloves. We end up spending more money on whoever we adopt than our own family members. All of our nieces, nephews, and my son are gonna have a great Christmas every year. This could be this kid's only one. Oh Speep, I got gold for a humble brag. Thanks. There's a Reddit page that does this per someone in the comments. Quick shout out to r/Santa's Little Helpers. It's Reddit's version of Adopt a Child/Family for Christmas. They help a lot of people over there every year. Thank you for doing this. I'm going to looking into doing something similar with my girlfriend when I get a regular paycheck. I was the Santa for an office party. It was my first year with the company, and apparently the tradition went that the newest guy had to wear the suit. Also something about how the suit was cursed. Anywho. Skip forward to the party. I'm going around taking pictures with people I barely knew at the time, and then it gets to where presents were being handed out. Now I had sat in the back because the CEO was the one handing out presents, didn't want to confuse people where the real money was, lol, and minding my own business. This woman, think mid-40s kinda cougar, walks up to me drunk out of her mind, and she sits on my lap. Now I'm all for keeping character, so I ask, why hello. What would you like for Christmas? And she says, without hesitation, I'd love for my husband to beat me in the ass while you watched. Now, when presented with the opportunity, I maintained composure and politely declined while attempting to get her off my lap. After she said it's fine. My husband's good with it. Let me get him, and that's when she screams out, Pat, at the top of her lungs. I speep you not. The whole party heard. And turned to see the new guy with the CEO's wife on his lap. Now remember when I said cursed? Apparently this wasn't the first time, and others had accepted the offer. I still worked there. Well, after I think the CEO figured out what was going on, he politely segued into his assistant handing out the rest of the presents. The room managed to get back to normal talking levels after that. Like same speep, different year type. She gets up and goes over to him when he's about halfway to the back of the room. Whispers I don't even know what into his ear while looking at me. He walked up to me. Didn't mention anything, just handed me a 50 and said, good job keeping character throughout the night. Hope you stick around to see another guy stuck in that next year with a completely unreadable face. That was the most confusing Christmas party I've ever been to. For those asking if I went through with it, I hate to inform that I denied. She kept making advances for a while after that, but always small and discreet. Guess she gave up after a while. She always lets things slide with me, so that's a positive. Did you accept though? And did the ones that did accept keep the job? PLS up, we must know. Not a Santa. But I worked at a mall taking photos of kids visiting Santa. So I heard a lot. I don't remember anything super creepy. Several kids asked for their parents to be home for Christmas. I live next to a huge US Army base, and the parents were in the armed forces. One kid asked for a remote to use on his baby sibling. He wanted to use the mute button. A few wanted their grandparents to come back passed away, or for a family member to be cured of cancer. One wanted a dog that couldn't die. All of these are really sad except for the mute button kid. That just sounds funny. Years ago, I was in line with my 6-year-old nephew for his visit with Santa. When Santa asked my nephew what he wanted for Christmas, he said, "Could you get mommy and daddy some pajamas? 'Cause they don't wear any." The whole line broke up, including Santa. I used to enjoy commando sleeping until I started traveling for work. Something about being in a strange place and not wanting to oversleep. I used to constantly wake up in a panicked bewilderment, not knowing where I am / being in the wrong place. Being naked made it that much worse. So PJ pants on the road. I always used to sleep nude. Then when on an overnight school trip where I was sharing a bed, I remembered I had no sleep clothing when I started to unpack at the hotel. Last minute shopping for boxers was fun. I fell in love with boxer shorts, so now I sleep in them. When on an overnight school trip where I was sharing a bed, I remembered I had no sleep clothing when I started to unpack at the hotel. Yeah. Traveling once, I male had to share a one-bed hotel room with a female friend. I get into bed with my clothes on and she was like, "What? You didn't bring pajamas?" Of course I didn't. They take up luggage space and I didn't know I'd be sharing a bed with someone. I was single then. I don't even think I owned pajamas.